Fitness family, you're tuning in to our first episode of the Hydrogen Fitness Podcast, the Hydro Bond, where we're going to talk about the community and the energy that makes Hydrogen Fitness Hydrogen Fitness. I'm your host, Valentina. You may know me, the fitness director here, and today we have a very special guest, the voice of UFC, heard by million fans all over, Jon Anik.
So good to be with you. A lot of pressure on me because this is the first episode. I saw some of the pilot, but I'm your first guest, so I got to bring it. You know, I got to clean up my language. We're here. We're ready to go. I'm not exercising here today, which feels kind of nice to just be able to chat. So thank you for having me, episode 1.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for being here today and bringing that energy. We definitely needed it this morning. So we're definitely here to talk today a little bit about the core values behind discipline and all that stuff. You know, it's the new year, new me. You know, we have a lot of new members coming into the facility lately. And I think having somebody like you is perfect. You know, you're around disciplined people all the time. So we're definitely here to chew off your ear. Jon, what does like a day-to-day look like for you?
So discipline is such a huge word. And I think for me, to your point, being around martial artists all the time, I think has really elevated my discipline. And I'm sure you've had a lot of long-form conversations about discipline versus motivation. But my life's been pretty crazy for the last 15 years. It's been about 100 nights a year on the road. I do have 3 kids, aged 7 to 14, so it's not always ideal to be on the road for that many nights a year. But I am a play-by-play announcer for the UFC, so I do about 20, 25 events a year, and sometimes those are in Australia. And I'm actually about to go to Sydney here shortly. And some days I am in my studio not far from Hydrogen Fitness, just doing voiceover work, doing a podcast, not unlike this one. But a lot of what I do is during fight week, surrounded by athletes, fighter meetings, getting as much intel as possible, putting myself in the best possible position to succeed come Saturday night, which is really where I guess, make my money, so to speak. You know, all the anxiety for me is in the preparation at this point. You know, oftentimes I'm the oldest man in the room, so that means I guess I have some experience, but the preparation is just a beast for these shows. You know, if you got 30 athletes and you give them each a couple hours, you do the math, it's a lot of time. So the preparation is the beast. And then, you know, come fight night, it's just you exhale and you just sort of let the preparation take over.
Just release it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is it like to be around people that are like in that type of zone all the time with that type of mindset? Like, do you feel like it influences you personally?
Well, I mean, you can't not be, I think, sort of inspired by individuals like this. And, you know, as someone who works for the UFC, it's easy for me to come and sit and say mixed martial arts athletes are the most disciplined, hardest working athletes in the world, right? I'm sure there are other people in all walks of life and walks of sport who would have a counter argument. But I think even a lot of the observers in this room would agree with me that what these mixed martial arts athletes have to do to put themselves in a position to succeed and fight another man or woman is otherworldly. So that has rubbed off on me, to be sure. You know, I was in radio for a while where I think I could walk around at 165 pounds and nobody would see my fat face. You know, being on television, I think, is part of it as well. And but it really is about discipline, you know, and I think for me, that's what I've learned the most from these athletes is that, you know, the treadmill calls at 7 a.m., whether I'm going to bed at 1 a.m. the night before or not. And it just sets up the rest of my day in terms of my emotional energy and my mentality. And I don't know if I was a basketball announcer, if that would have rubbed off on me to the extent to which it has. So I'm very thankful for that part of it. It's sort of been a crazy life and one that I did not expect to live. I'm a homebody and not necessarily somebody who envisioned being on metal tube airplanes all the time, but here we are.
Yeah, no, honestly, like routine is a big thing. And I heard you say before that, like, no matter what it is, no matter what your nights are like that 7 a.m. treadmill is calling you. And I think that goes for a lot of people. Like routine plays the biggest role, and it does start mentally, because if you're not mentally prepared, then you can never get physically prepared. So what is your workout routine though? Like, are you like, you know, 50-50 cardio and weights, or like? So
I was a runner for a long time, which means I'm linear. My hips are tight. There's a lot of things that I need to sort of loosen up, you know, so I have leaned into yoga recently, but no, I mean, I sort of made a pivot probably 2 or 3 years ago to do more strength and conditioning and less cardio. For me, like the lazy man's workout is me hopping on a treadmill and doing a 5K, you know, but you get a runner's high. And if you're a runner, running 3.2 miles is not really anything, you know, but if I can't get anything else in, right? Like oftentimes on a Friday for a UFC fight week, I'm on the treadmill early and I have a weigh-in that I'm emceeing at 8:30. I got to be on camera without fucking puffy eyes at 8:50 in the morning. You know what I mean? So I'm on a treadmill usually at 6:30, 7 a.m. doing the lazy man's workout, a quick 5K, but mentally it just gets me in a good place. You cut a little weight and that was sort of my routine for a long time, but I've sort of pivoted away from the running, not because of any knee issues necessarily, just understanding the value of strength training and my weak ass bones and bone density and all of those things. But I do feel like for somebody as tight as me, and we do have yoga now at Hydrogen Fitness, that's enormous. I feel like every MMA fighter should be doing yoga, hot or otherwise, at least once a week. And I'm the worst one in the class.
No way.
No, I am. I'm terrible. I feel like I bring, if they, what is it, like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like I bring everybody else down when we're all looking in the mirror. I'm the one guy who can't.
And you know what? That's okay though, because I think a lot of people, again, give those types of people credit. Like you have to start somewhere. Not everyone's going to go into like a yoga room and know exactly what they're doing and feel comfortable doing it. You have to just push yourself, because if you're not going to push yourself, you're not going to get closer to those, the goals that you're setting for yourself.
Yeah.
But that's so interesting that you're doing yoga. Tell me a little bit more about it though.
So a lot of people say golf is addictive, right? Brazilian jiu-jitsu was not addictive for me. I did not enjoy Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Putting on pajamas and grappling with another man was not my thing, but it's addictive. And for me, I'm so terrible at yoga that it's addictive, and wondering aloud or inwardly if I can actually balance on one leg and do some of these things. And I can understand sort of the value in terms of my whole body, in terms of breathing and relaxing and lymph nodes and all these different things. So I'm leaning into the value of that. I still think the best thing I could be doing is, classes with you or a personal trainer here, and leaning into 100%. That, because I do believe that sort of my inner softy is revealed when I'm doing strength and conditioning workouts on my own, right? Because I'm around enough tough, hard-nosed athletes to know that maybe I do have some of that quitter in me. I'm okay acknowledging that. And when I'm working with a trainer, I'm less inclined to quit. But I love yoga. I can't believe the extent to which it has become addictive for me. I wouldn't classify myself as a yogi, but I think when you're so poor at something, to think about actually getting to a place not of expertise but of competence is exciting. So we'll see. We'll see how long I stick with it. If I can't do these things in like a year and a half, I'm out. But I'm trying right now. We'll see.
Yeah. And would you say that there's a specific movement in this in the yoga that you want to get better at? Like any of the stretches, any of the poses?
So I can't touch my toes.
So no way.
Right. So now I am able to, from a seated position, actually touch my right toe, not my left yet. Yeah. I mean, talk about running almost exclusively for 30 years. I think we'll do some of that to you. But so even just simplistically, like the thought of being able to bend down and touch my toes is very exciting. But I think balancing on one leg and then having the other leg straight out with my hands around that foot and a straight back is like...
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you the name of it for the life of me.
Me neither.
No,
Very impressive though.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of people thought in my mixed martial arts UFC world that they would get me on a mat and I would love jiu-jitsu. And that was not the case.
Not the case.
Who would have thought that I would love yoga? So.
Well, I'm honestly not surprised. I feel like a lot of us, we make these goals to like lift really heavy, right? How many plates can we put on that barbell? Yeah. But to be honest, I think goals of can you balance on one foot, holding your other foot straight out forward is just as hard. And if anything harder, because, not everybody wants to do like those kind of movements. You want to come to the gym and kind of show yourself off kind of. So being in a room full of maybe majority ladies also, it's different type of challenge, but also, very valid. And I think it's really cool that you're, in this whole like yogi wave too.
It's amazing to see some of the men in there, but there was one class I showed up and it was 22-1. Oftentimes the ratio is more balanced, but there were 22 women and I was the only guy. And that was a little bit intimidating,
Kind of fun.
It's interesting though. Like a lot of people be like, oh dude, yeah, you check out the girls. It's like, no, dude, like I'm trying to balance on one foot. Like honestly, like not a time in however many classes am I focused on that, because I do believe that when I'm worse in those classes, it's because of a lack of mental focus, like when you're trying to execute a triangle for the yogis out there, right? Like there are times where I'm thinking about the UFC and fighting and I can't do a triangle. So.
100%. And I was just about to say the same thing. Like, yes, we come to the gym to not think about the stresses outside of the facility. And there are times where we are mid-workout or about to start our workout and we get an email from work and all that stuff. And I think, it's very important to put that all to the side and just focus on yourself, your body, and your mind for at least 45 to 60 minutes, because that's really all you need when you're working out as well. So yeah, no, that's awesome. And you mentioned before that you live pretty close by. You work pretty close by. Is that how you found out about Hydrogen Fitness?
Yes. So I lived in Las Vegas for 4 years and then Florida for 10 and came up here and, I was sort of surfing around the internet and I found Hydrogen Fitness and, my search oftentimes begins with, do they have a sauna and or a steam room? And, those boxes were checked and, I met with my guy AP and here we are, so it's really amazing having it this close by. It's a tremendous facility, and I just need to decide among these amazing trainers who's going to be my man or woman, because I really do think that that's what I need to do to take it to the next level. I was doing that in Florida, and I'm an excuse machine since moving up here when it comes to getting a personal trainer.
Okay, no more excuses. This is going to be our new our resolution for you.
Got to.
No more excuses.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, like we have an array of trainers that also, do a lot of classes. So whenever you're ready, we're going to throw you in one of them and we're going to make sure that it's one of the most complex workouts or stretch movements. We're huge on community too here. So like we are big on, member relations and all that stuff as well. Do you feel like that you've noticed anything different that stands out at Hydrogen Fitness in terms of community that you've witnessed that differently in the other facilities?
Yeah, I think people look you in the eye here and smile, right? I feel a friendliness. You do get greeted when you leave after your workout. 90% of the time they say, have a good workout, right? And I do think some of us bring anxiousness to the workout and maybe some negative energy. I try to get it out of the way early because it is one of the harder parts of my day. And I think for a lot of us, we feel like once we conquer that, we can do anything. But I'm big on sort of pleasantries, I sort of like that. And I like people who look you in the eye. And so I feel that here and I feel the community. And I think anybody who has been to a big gym has experienced some serious horrors. I'm not going to mention any names, but it is embarrassing what goes on at some of these places just in terms of the aesthetic. And, I have 2 daughters who are sort of emerging in this space a little bit and excited to be in this space. And the thought of bringing them in here when they're old enough is very exciting to think about this being foundationally a huge part of their lives because they have a facility like this compared to nothing like this when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's super exciting that your kids are about to be the age that they're going to want to start physically training. Are they in any sports right now?
So they are cheerleaders and dancers and former soccer players. One thing that's interesting about parenting is sort of getting your kids to play sports. And then when do you stop having them play sports like against their will, right? So it's always been as long as you're doing something, right? Whether it's yoga or cheer or dance, something physical. But like my sister didn't want to play soccer. And like eventually my parents didn't make her play soccer against her will. So that's been part of the battle. But parenting food is a hard thing. Parenting nutrition is a hard thing. Parenting fitness is a hard thing because we have all this knowledge now that we didn't have necessarily when we were kids. My dad would go for a run every night. God love him, but he wasn't asking me and my twin brother to go run with him, And so my daughters don't necessarily want to go run with me. I get it. They're 12, they have these amazing devices that we didn't have, So how far do you sort of push that, knowing what we know now and knowing that if you can sort of instill that discipline, they'll thank you for it later. So it's a balancing act. Certain things have stuck. The stick and ball sports haven't necessarily stuck.
No, but you know what? We learn at home. I think we also, as a parent, you lead by example. So you even having that experience, remembering your father going on all those runs at night.
Right.
And now you're also doing it. I'm sure your kids are going to want to, live by that too, because that's what they know.
Yeah.
And I could so relate to that. I remember being 12 years old and being locked on my phone. When the iPhones first came out, I just wanted to be on my phone, but slowly that changes. I feel like a part of us, we want to try new things. And it's really important that when we're trying new things, especially as a young woman or as a young adult, you want to be in a place that supports that.
So I'm actually big on devices for kids, which is a minority opinion, right? It's about how you sort of parent them. But I've gotten over a hurdle recently when it comes to just what am I going on my device for, right? So I'm a public figure to whatever degree. I monetize my Instagram, right? But I don't need to be sitting on the Instagram application, right? So oftentimes I'm going onto my phone to place a bet on sports or check a work email, and I end up in the damn Instagram app, right? So I've started to say out loud, I'm going to check an email, and I'll go do that, and then I'll get out of the phone. And I think if my kids can understand why they're going into their phone, not necessarily have all these screen time restrictions, but why are you going into your phone? Because it's addictive and it's right there and it's super divisive and
It's boredom.
Yeah, it's
boredom, and it's like having that convenience that we have the world in our hand when we grab that phone. But it's also about creating like new habits. And again, like new year, new resolutions. Like it takes a while to form a habit. I'm not really sure. How many days is it? Like 21 days to form a new habit?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we are day like 12 in the New Year's, guys. Like it's time to start these new habits. But yeah, no, I honestly think that it's the time that we're like kids are in their phone. Like parents definitely are like leading by example, try to get them out. And, you know, being in the safety in the hands of being with a personal trainer, I think goes a long way. You know, being in the hands of a personal trainer, you're also making sure that, you know, someone's not getting hurt or injured and making sure that they're not just training for aesthetics, but training for longevity, training for sustainability. It all goes a very long way.
When I started doing yoga regularly, I thought to myself, man, I've abandoned all these small muscle groups over the last 6 months because I haven't had a trainer. And would I not be the worst in class if I had a personal trainer working on those things? You know, my hips are just trash, but
that's okay.
Yeah, no, but we'll get there. But I really do believe, and I understand there are financial considerations for people when it comes to hiring a personal trainer. I get it, right? But if you are looking to get over the threshold and make discipline lead the dance for you, that's how I did it, you know. Certainly being on TV and not radio was part of it, you know, and you can certainly Google and see some pictures in which it looks like my face was like injected with like butter. But for me, that's what it took. It took working with a trainer and just really, really hard sessions, just walking to my car and just feeling so good about myself for having gotten through it. And then even if my workouts on my own aren't as fruitful, they're getting done, you know, 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah, well, to be honest, also, I think we all have to also be a little forgiving on ourselves. Not everything is going to be up high, you know. Life is a roller coaster, you know. Sometimes you're not going to want to, you know, get into the gym because we have things that are going on in our personal lives, and we can't change what's going on in our personal life. We can only change what's going on within ourselves, right? So I think it's also like forgive yourself sometimes if you just fall off track, to be honest. That doesn't mean you're never going to get back on track. Like everyone falls off at some point, and you have to get to the place where you know that you can get back on track. And it really depends on who you're surrounding yourself with as well. Like if you don't have a personal trainer, that's fine, but at least try to be around people that are on that same motivation as you. That can help you and get you back to where you want to be. Like, again, if you're falling off track, guys, this is the time of the year just to get back on track.
Yeah. No, I wish I had some of that wisdom when I was your age, just about giving yourself grace, right?
Yeah.
If your body needs 2 days or your mind needs 2 days, or you need to be in here for 15 or 20 minutes, it's amazing what you can accomplish in that amount of time. And yeah, I think that's something that I didn't give myself any grace in my 30s. You know? And it's a good point by you.
Give yourself grace. And if you have 20 minutes, guys, use that 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I've gotten probably one of my best workouts in during like a 30-minute like break. If I have 30 minutes, like I'm going to use that 30 minutes to like the best that I could.
Yeah.
So if you have time, even if it's in your house, almost every person who has a gym membership or doesn't have a gym membership because maybe they're a little nervous can relate to the stress at home that we want to release when we're in the gym. I don't know why picking up the heaviest dumbbell, the heaviest barbell afterwards can make a person feel so much better about themselves. Maybe it's because we're doing something that we're telling ourselves that we couldn't do, and like we don't have anybody else around us telling us no. and we're able to like, prove something to ourselves. But there's something to be said about like outside stress, just like disappearing after like one of the most toughest workouts ever.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do think other than nutrition, I think there's no higher form of self-love, but I'm 47, right? So you have a wisdom that belies your years. When I was 25 or 32, if I was hearing a lot of this stuff, it wouldn't necessarily have resonated with me. And it sort of comes back to the kids and how much you push these kids to work out, knowing how good it is for them to develop muscle and core strength in their formative years. I think a lot of parents are unafraid to just, push their children physically because they know that they'll be thanking them later. And I'm not totally there yet, but maybe I'll get there.
I think there's nothing wrong with being pushed. I always tell people, like my dad threw me in the pool so I could learn how to swim.
Yeah.
So, but I think when it comes to kids, the one thing I will say is like, just monitor them from a distance. Like kids want to be independent, especially that age. Like they really want to be independent. Monitor them from a distance, giving them that like nice freedom to do what they want, but also like my eyes are on you. It always goes a long
kind
way.
but firm.
Yeah.
Got to be firm though.
Do you feel like there's any misconceptions behind like diets and like all these like food crash diets and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, largely the guy that I listen to is Mike Dolce, the Dolce diet, Whole Foods. He eats white potatoes, he eats white rice, everything in moderation. I haven't always practiced that, but when my parents were giving me Doritos and Coca-Cola Classic, and by the way, my favorite food or beverage is American black tea, AKA Coca-Cola Classic. But when my parents were giving me Doritos, like we didn't necessarily know that they weren't
good
great
for you. Right.
So...
And, who knew Kool-Aid was bad?
Right. But, my 12-year-old is a foodie, and I don't want to totally disembrace that. You know what I mean? Like, I went to the Patriots game last night, and my daughter Tatum is like, "Are you going to eat at the game?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I'm going to eat at the game." She's like, "What are you going to eat?" I'm like, "Everything."
Whatever
and maybe
I
you can
want.
come with me next week and eat everything with me. So it's a balancing act, But I guess I just wish that we didn't have a weight room at my high school until I was exiting my senior year, and I wonder how I would have manicured and manufactured my teen and 20s if it was more of a public emphasis like it is now.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that as well. I'm always like, what would I have done differently with the mindset I have today?
Yeah.
Being who I was back then. But to be honest, all we could do now is just like educate the youth, educate everyone else.
Yeah.
And again, going back to like this new year, new me resolutions, now that we spoke a lot about like having the mindset we have now that we wish we had back then. And there are people at that position that right now where we were a few years ago. So what is your best advice for everybody that's trying to kick it in now?
Well, certainly I would lean into what V said about grace, because that's an important part of this, especially when you're getting started. And I just wouldn't beat yourself up if you last, a quarter as long as some of these individuals and you're coming in for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm big on lists, not so much goal setting, but a list at the beginning of the day of things that I'm going to knock out. And I just think routine. I have one child who's in such a routine that she can't even shower at 8:05. It's got to be 8 o'clock on the screws, and that can go both ways. But I think having a routine, having discipline, and once that discipline's instilled, it'll be there, because then even when you don't feel well, you will go do something and you reap the benefits the rest of the day. So, it's I can't believe sort of where I was at maybe in my formative years as a broadcaster, going on TV or radio, not exercising regularly, and just what my mentality might have been cracking a microphone. Now I can tell you the few UFC shows that I've done where I didn't exercise that day because of an illness or something, and I just gave myself grace on that day. But yeah, I just think leaning into discipline as the word, not motivation, which is an empty word. I think a lot of us have come to realize that. You just have to be disciplined to show up in whatever form. And thankfully, at about 32 years of age, I got there. And for 15 years, I've been disciplined.
Yeah. And to add on that, I think just baby steps. Like no one has to get that biggest goal on day one. Everything works in like moderation, like baby steps, guys, like, cause baby steps do at the end of the day become a big step.
Yeah.
And that comes with, giving yourself grace. So, again, thank you, Jon, so much for being here today. It was honestly amazing to have you on this first episode. And yeah, stay tuned, fitness family. Stay healthy, stay motivated. See you around.